survival. Come too far to stop now. Make it through and I don't care how. 'Cause I will fight for my survival. So make no mistake, my friend. We both know how this will end. I've gotta fight for my survival. I'm gonna be the last one standing. I will overcome, and I refuse to run. I'm gonna fight for my survival. Yeah. I will overcome. There's no way I'm backing down this time. 'Cause I will fight for, yes, I will fight for survival. I will overcome, and I refuse to run. I'm gonna fight for my survival. Yeah. I will overcome. There's no way I'm backing down this time. 'Cause I will fight for, yes, I will fight for survival.
Welcome to the Dire Wolf Show, where we believe that America is exceptional and that our constitutional rights should never be infringed. I am Dire Wolf. On our show, we bring you the truth and debunk fake news. If you love laughing at the insanity of the regressive left, sit back and relax. Boy, do I have a show for you. Welcome back, Wolfpack. Unidentified secret Dire Wolf here for our weekly news recap behind enemy lines on YouTube, where speech is not free and the truth is demonetized. Alongside me is my unidentified secret, don't talk about it, co-host Fox. How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Pretty unidentified. Definitely don't have my name tag on my avatar, and you definitely didn't just identify me as your co-host.
It is very suspicious that we don't know who you are, Fox. Even though we've said your name multiple times and you are clearly identified on the screen, we are going to pretend like we don't know to make it more illicit.
I feel secure in my anonymity right now. I know I just butchered that word.
Don't worry. I'm sure I'm going to butcher a lot more words today that will definitely make everyone forget about your one misstep just now.
Fantastic.
So, you guys are funding my inability to speak. I wonder how it makes you feel. Thank you very much, Kaylit, Ori Main, Nathan, Cameron, Tetris Freak, Slowpoke, Thundra Erican, who is female, by the way, and the White Lion. You are making this happen, and no one forgives you. Also, big thank you to Timberwolf for your donations and boosting us on the Discord. You're all part of the problem.
Yes. This is your fault. You did this.
I take zero personal responsibility for my own actions. I am blaming those who support this show. That's you guys. You can also support the show in our this unidentified show in its illicit behaviors by sharing and liking the videos on all the platforms, wherever you might be watching this.
Yes, we do not have an algorithm to help us. Well, there is an algorithm, but It doesn't help us.
It definitely hurts.
Yes. But you guys are our algorithm that share out our content so that new viewers can see it. Share it out to your friends. Share it out to your family. Share it out to your dogs. And especially your enemies. Remember that, Dyer?
Yes.
Yeah, share it out to your enemies as well.
If you really like it, share it out to your enemies as well.
Yes, Triumvirate, you are the enablers. All right. Well, do we have a show for you tonight?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we
That's
do.
why we're here.
Okay, because that was
Follow
definitely a question. It's fantastic Sunday night, guys. All right, so it does not appear that we have an opening funny video, but that's because we had Dyer. So there you go. What's our first story?
And we're going to talk about them together.
Did you
It's
put them in
about the
cages?
I put them in cages.
Did you
Absolutely.
separate them from their smaller stories?
I did.
Okay.
But I was only following rules that existed under the Obama administration. So I figured it was so.
One might say that you were even just following orders.
I was just following orders.
Oh my god!
Moving
All
along.
right, so our first mini story is so like Dyer said, the riots continue. There's a lot of little stories that make up the riots. Really, we could just do like an 8-hour live stream about the riots every day, and we wouldn't be done with it. But our little morsels that we picked out, little selections that we thought were the best parts of the riots, we have those for you tonight. And the first one is Lori Lightfoot's hypocrisy. Funny story, when setting up the slide, I was searching for Lori's picture, and I just typed in Lori because I figured she was the first one to pop up. And instead of this Lori, the other Lori, the like rich, kind of hot, famous one that paid like a bunch of money to have her daughter like cheat on the SATs or whatever for college, she is going to jail for 2 months now. And so her picture popped up instead of this Lori, and her picture was like much nicer than this Lori.
The prize.
Yeah, I'll pull it up here real quick. Let me see.
Because I don't know if you guys remember Lori Lightfoot, but she has a horrific face. It's very, very unnerving.
Yeah, so like I was searching, and instead of like this hideous ghoul here, I got this like kind of sexy librarian thing going on here, and I was like, that was not what I was expecting. And then it was even more jarring going from that to this thing.
Because now you had a comparison.
Yeah.
A contrast between the two.
So, but why are we talking about Lori Lightfoot other than the fact that she's hideous? Well, she has, after nearly 3 months of constant riots that have torn apart Portland and the different districts and neighborhoods there, Portland police and government officials, I think Dyer means Chicago, though, because Mayor Lori Lightfoot's in Chicago. So Chicago's had a lot of sympathy riots going on as well, along with the Portland riots, which are kind of the main riots. And then Chicago, as you guys know, is basically a war zone, having double-digit deaths every single day. Fantastic job, guys. But Lori has been one heck of a hypocrite during the riot times, and then also during the COVID times in general. She famously, at the beginning of the COVID lockdowns, when they were locking down all kinds of things, including hair salons, got her hair done, and people called her out on it, and she said that she needed a haircut because she was the face of the city, and it was important that she looked good.
Oh, that's the face of the city? That explains a lot.
And I believe her specific wording was also that personal hygiene is very important to her, because obviously that's not important to the regular plebs of Chicago. So this week, she has, over the last several weeks in Chicago, has had the police stand down and allowed the riots to just kind of run rampant through the city. They've destroyed Michigan Avenue. They've had to raise the bridges, all kinds of crazy stuff. And Lori's just kind of been letting it happen. And then she had not one, not two, but 100 Chicago police officers. She tasked them with defending her house, her personal house. And there was some protesters and rioters that wanted to go pay Lori a visit. And as they had paid visits to all the other citizens of Chicago throughout the last few weeks and, raped and pillaged and robbed them. But they wanted to go do that to Lori. And Lori said, no, this is a exclusion zone. And she had 100 police officers, literally 100 police officers, defending her home. And when called out for her hypocrisy, she said that personal safety was very important to her, and it's her right to feel safe in her home. That's why she needed 100 cops at her home, because it's her right to feel safe. Mind you, she is supportive of the anti-police rhetoric. She's supportive of defund the police. She has been having the police stand down. She has been mayor. I believe that she's presided over probably 10 to 15,000 murders in Chicago. If you're looking at, I think she's been mayor for like at least 3 or 4 years, and Chicago's been at a pretty steady rate of 6,000 to 7,000 murders per year. So, I mean, you do the math on that. She's had a lot of people who apparently it was not their right to feel safe in the city.
She's been a terrible mayor, and it's pretty hypocritical for her to say that she wants to remove the police and then she used them as her own private army to protect her castle. But the worst hypocrisy of it all is that she has directly presided over and explicitly allowed the rioters to go through neighborhoods and harass people in their homes at night, attack people, destroy people's property, not only businesses but homes, take away people's jobs, take away places where they used to go to shop, where they used to go to restaurants. They've destroyed the lives of people in the area and taken away their sense of safety because of her inaction, or rather her action of making sure the police did not act. She has made it so no one else in that city has a right to feel safe, and then when those riots come to her doorstep, now she says that's where it stops and only there. That's the line you cannot cross. I will feel safe while you plebs can't. You little people, you will suffer, but I will not suffer the consequence of my actions. And by the way, I think what's most unnerving about her face, other than the sick and twisted mind that lays beneath it, is the distance between her eyes, which is called your interpupillary distance, your IPD. I think that she must have an award-winning IPD. She has the IPD of a man twice her size. Yeah. It doesn't fit on her face.
She reminds me of like the Bethesda character creating at the beginning of the games. You're playing like Skyrim or something like that, and like you can kind of like fuck around with like the different facial features, make the eyes go really wide or really narrow. But like, I'm pretty sure that the widest eyes that you can get in a Bethesda game, I don't think that you could get them this wide. Like, Lori does not fit within the Bethesda character creation engine. You literally could not make Lori a playable character in the Bethesda.
And that's why she's an NPC.
Yes. She's definitely a mod. Maybe she's one of the monsters. That's what makes sense. Yeah, she couldn't possibly be one of the human NPCs. She'd have to be one of the monsters. Totally different mesh. All right. What's our next story, Dyer? What's the next sub-story there?
Our next sub-story is Proud Boys push back in Portland with paintball guns. But it's actually more about not just Proud Boys, but just general pushback.
And Gavin McInnes is not associated with the Proud Boys anymore. I'm slandering him right now.
Yes, you are. Hope you feel bad about that.
I do. Do I want to read this? In reaction to the months of violence from BLM and Antifa, right-wing groups have started to counter-protest around the country, and including Portland, which is technically, in my opinion, not part of the country. The first sign of this was BLM being violently kicked out of neighborhoods in the more conservative states. There's been a lot of very fun and entertaining videos of a lot of good old American boys marching the Antifa nerds out of their neighborhoods. Very funny. It's funny when you see like actual, like real American humans and like, you know, they have like proper body proportions, and then they're like pushing out these like Antifa people who are like either like extremely aggressively overweight or just like on the verge of death, like frail. Like, it's just, there's no in between. Like, there's no normally proportioned or like healthy body shapes in Antifa. I wonder if there's a correlation with that.
Some of them were people just blocking entrance to their neighborhoods in the first place. Rather than having kicked them out, they just stood there with guns and like keep walking.
Yep. So there's been a few instances of those, but those were again in the more conservative or even just rural areas where, you know, the neighborhood was just not going to put up with that kind of crap. But that sort of mentality of, okay, it's time for you to go home, guys, that has started to work its way into even Portland. So the last few nights in Portland, we saw some of those counter protests from certain conservative groups. Quote, No to Marxism in America, which I believe is one of the groups. So we also had the Mother of All Back the Blue rallies, which is the name of the group, and also the Proud Boys. The left-wing media characterized the counter-protests as being far-right, of course, probably even Nazis, or in opposition to the peaceful BLM protesters, while in reality they were just the reasonable pushback to the violent riots destroying their cities. And the reason why they were reasonable responses is because the police have left them no choice. The police have stood down. They have followed the orders to stand down and be derelict in their duty to protect and serve. And the citizenry of these cities is left with the option of either submitting to a radical authoritarian thug gang in Antifa, which, I mean, it's just an actual warlord situation there. We saw the Chaz. The Chaz was the model for every city. That is what their goal was. So the option, if you're living in one of these cities, your option is to move. Realistically, that should be what you do. But if you're going to stay there, you can either submit to what will eventually become a citywide Chaz, or you can, since the cops aren't doing anything about it, you really don't have any other choice but to go out and do something about it yourself. And that is
the strategy.
Go ahead.
Sorry. The strategy they've been using was based off the idea that if you have a single incident that makes the populace angry, you just wait it out and don't use police to make it worse by increasing the anger by using riot tactics to disperse the crowds, because I think it'll stop the crowds from coming. But the problem is those crowds, the Antifa and BLM people, they aren't just enraged by a single incident. In fact, they're using that as an excuse. The whole George Floyd thing is just an excuse. What they want is communist revolution, Marxist revolution. They don't actually care about the death of George Floyd. That is just an excuse for a revolution. So since their motive is a revolution, pulling back the police does not make them, they're not going to peter out. They're just going to keep going and going until you either stop them. And the only way you're going to stop them is either the police do their job, or the only alternative is the police don't. Then you force the populace to act.
And we let's put some teeth on the idea that they want a revolution. It's kind of nebulous, undefined. But Antifa's defined that for us. We saw that in the Project Veritas tapes last year when they infiltrated the Bernie Sanders campaign, and you had Bernie Sanders Antifa infiltrators were saying, you know, the idea is, you know, similar to how after World War II the Nazis had to be re-educated. That's what we're going to have to do to the right. We're going to have to re-educate them. So that is what to put some definition, to put some teeth onto what they mean by having a revolution, is they mean that they would like to take over the city, come into your home, and take you to a re-education camp. That is, unironically, I'm not exaggerating, that is what they want to do. So
that's what they want to do for people who are passive, and the people who are actively opposed to them, they just want to kill.
Yes. So that has been what the Antifa people on the ground have openly been discussing and talking about for a long time. Actually, Sargon was having a live stream last night where he was talking about This is a little bit meta. Sargon was having a live stream where he was discussing someone else's live stream. It was a commie Antifa live stream, but he was really aghast that they were openly discussing the logistics of disposing of people. Like, this is where Antifa is at, where they are on Twitch live streams. Yeah, the communist revolution is happening on Twitch, you guys. But they were actually openly discussing, like, what is the logistics of disposing of all of these people that are opposing us. And Sargon was like, I can't believe that it's actually come to this. Which, I mean, I think ironically he probably can believe that it came to this, because I can believe that it came to this because we've seen it coming to this for a long time. But just to go back home to this story, the police... Normally this wasn't a big deal, right? So, like, the last, 5 years of this buildup of Antifa, it's kind of been, like, cutesy annoying that they say these things and they, that they want to come kill you and all that sort of stuff. But we live in a civil society. It's like, okay, that's adorable, you guys, but, like, we have, like, a society. There's rules, there's laws, there's police, there's the military. But what we're seeing now is that these Democrat-controlled cities, they have removed those state-sanctioned defenders of your rights, and they are allowing Antifa to run wild and do whatever they want. And so we know what Antifa wants to do to you. And, maybe that's not going to happen tomorrow. Maybe it doesn't happen next year, but certainly on the trajectory that we're going, if these Democrat cities continue to allow them to run roughshod, that's where this ends. And so it's pretty obvious that you're going to start seeing some civilian groups have to take up arms to defend themselves. Again,
it's not just that the police are doing nothing. It's that the police are actually, when they are taking action, they are actually helping to strip the rights of citizens away, which is going to be a part of the section later on in this story. Whereas not only are the police doing nothing, they're actually being the tools of tyrants in some states.
Yep. And, this is kind of using Antifa in this way, obviously, is riding right alongside the Democrats, and this was kind of not dissimilar to how tyrants in Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union and Maoist China, how they came to power, is you kind of had the suit and tie leaders of the revolution, where they were kind of had their hands were clean of the violence, but they had these violent groups. You had the brown shirts and the black shirts and all that stuff, where you would have the militant arm of the political party out in the streets, and then you had the politicians whose hands were clean. And we're seeing that with the Democrats this time. Where the Democrats, you got the politicians who, their hands are real clean, but they've got these disavowable groups of militants out in the streets harassing people.
So people look at our world today, and a lot of people say, it's not possible for us to have a revolution where there's no way the communists or Marxists could take over because we're not like them. But you guys got to realize that most of human history has been a lot more violent and a lot less prosperous than America currently is. And that it takes one generation or less, because society is only what people make it, right? And if people change, society changes. So it only takes one generation for our world to change entirely.
And that's why I always bring this up. I think probably the ANCAPs always hate me for this, but one of the reasons why I'm not an ANCAP, I'm a libertarian, but I'm not that hard libertarian, I'm more of a constitutionalist, is because the Constitution was designed around the idea that the state of nature, it was not possible to have liberties for everyone defended in the state of nature, because it would just devolve into might makes right chaos, and you needed a state to be the arbiter of making sure that everyone's rights were protected. And one of the reasons why, again, I'm not an ANCAP is because if it was possible for everyone's rights to be protected and for it to not devolve into warlords, that would have if it was possible for that to spontaneously exist, it would have happened at some point throughout history. But it was not until we had the constitutional monarchy of the UK and then the constitutional republic of the US that we saw a more stabilized version that had longevity with more of an equal distribution of protected rights. Before that, for the entirety of human history, it was violence, it was might makes right, it was servitude, it was warlords. And that's what Antifa would like to go back to.
Right. And you guys can look at recent examples throughout history. You can look at how Iran went from being a more westernized and prosperous country to being the exact opposite, a theocratic nightmare place to live that's extremely poor, where it used to be really wealthy. Germany, you can look at the before World War I and after World War II changes of Germany. Their society is not even similar after the takeover of the Nazis. There is a lot of examples of how just one generation's political movement can completely change the face of a country. So it might seem ridiculous, but it's possible, and that's why it takes everyone to do their part to be opposed to it. And also, don't discount the possibility that there really could be violence that comes to your door, and the best thing you can do is to fight the fights before it gets to your door, because this is going to affect all of us.
Yeah,
but getting back to the story,
is fragile.
Yes. The left-wing media, the ones in the left-wing media who do finally admit that the protests have not been peaceful, they are now blaming fringe groups hijacking the protest. But if that really was the case, if it really were that these were mostly peaceful protests and that just small groups of radicals, I guess they didn't say what side of the political spectrum those radicals are, if they are just hijacking these mostly peaceful protests, then these peaceful protesters would naturally be aligned on the same side as these quote-unquote far-right protesters in opposition to the violence, but they're not. So it seems like the protesters, since they're not, fighting against the violence also, then they are probably on the same side and probably taking part in it. It doesn't logically make sense to me that if you think that we have this 90% of this group are peaceful and opposed to violence, and they're allowing that 10% to be super violent.
If Trump can say that he condemns and disavows white nationalism, and they still consider him to be the leader of the KKK, then I would say that the quote-unquote peaceful protesters who have not done anything to condemn or disavow the violence, I would say that they are definitely a part of the violence, if this is the standard that we're going for here.
Exactly. And they don't like to be held to their same standard because they don't believe in standards. So BLM and Antifa attacked the right-wing groups on multiple occasions, and the right-wing groups have responded, and they've armed themselves. And they are only out there in response to the violence. It is not like the mainstream media has been reporting that right-wing groups attacked the left-wing, the BLM protests. In fact, if BLM went out there and did not attack anybody, did not destroy anything, then there would be no conflict. There only is conflict because the BLM and Antifa are attacking the right-wing groups and their communities. That's why the police are not concerned with being attacked by the conservative protesters, because the conservative protesters are not going out there to do wanton violence and destruction. It's the people on the left, and they are a response to it. Both sides are using shield sticks or flagpoles, and the Proud Boys are using paintball guns, which I thought was a pretty smart strategy. Antifa and BLM resorted to throwing bags of poop, which says a lot about them.
I prefer my sticks to be approximately 18 inches long and chambered in 5.56. The riots were well organized, with the weapons and shields being distributed to rioters. They had kind of a supply chain and manufacturing thing going on, which implies that they were not grassroots or spontaneous. They do appear to be pretty well planned, and they're being supported with a great deal of funding and resources. Somebody's got to pay for all these materials, and certainly not these yahoos. The first sign...
jobs.
Yeah. The first signs that you could say were the pallets of bricks being dropped off in the protest areas, which that's back from the very beginning of this. And I think, we never really saw any I guess other reasons why those were dropped off other than for the protests. They seem to be just a little too perfect. And even a lot of the back in the day when there was peaceful protesters, they were commenting that, hey, it's a little strange. There's been many stories of vehicles that will pull up to the riots, and then all of a sudden all the doors will be like a van or something like that. All the doors will open, and then out comes all the shields and sticks, and all of a sudden the violent protest becomes armed. The police in Seattle this week captured one such vehicle, a van that was packed with fireworks and weapons that were going to be distributed to rioters. Hollywood and wealthy Democrats have also directly funded these riots by paying the bail and legal fees of the rioters who were arrested, no matter what violent crimes they committed. Antifa legal aid workers attended the riots to take down the info of those arrested and later secure their release. Not that it was really necessary, because in these lefty cities, the prosecutors are just blanket pardoning all of them. These people are well funded, and we should take a hard look at who is funding domestic terrorists, because that is a crime.
So whether or not they actually get prosecuted is a different thing, but I just want to point out, even if they aren't going to be prosecuted for what they're doing, U.S. Code 2339C is the crime that they are committing. It prohibits the using financing for terrorism. Terrorism under this code is defined as any other act intended to cause death or serious injury to a civilian or any other person not taking an active part in hostilities in a situation of armed conflict, so not war, when the purpose of such act is by its nature or context to intimidate a population or compel a government or an international organization to do or to abstain from doing an act. So they are saying they want the government to do a bunch of things, and they're committing acts of violence until those things are done. And they are intentionally intimidating the population by going to their homes and terrorizing them there and attacking them and their property. This is, by definition, under this law, terrorism. And you are not allowed to finance terrorism. It's against the law. It's a felony. So
one of the problems with having 700,000 pages of legal code is that it's completely innavigable by people like us without a stupid amount of money. But if you're in the government, or you've got the levers of power, or you've got a wealthy access to big high power lawyers, there's so much law that you can just make it into whatever you want and beat whoever you want over the head with it. And the little people, it's just so much law that you can't even possibly know where to start with it. So it's useless to you. And just the entire legal apparatus is just a big web that allows powerful people to use it against unpowerful people, and you can't reverse it, which is what we're seeing.
There's one thing about this as well, that there's so many laws on the books that basically everyone in society is guilty of something. And if they want to destroy you, all they need to do is find what of the things that are against the law you have done.
And if you're Hillary Clinton, they just ignore it.
Exactly. That's how it works.
Or if you're Antifa. So Facebook has also finally banned Antifa. Oh boy, Zuckerberg, what happened to you, man? He must have got bit by one of the other.
Too little, too late, though.
Yeah. Do you think? I wonder if they replaced the lizard Zuckerberg with Android Zuckerberg.
I think this is just CYA because the election's coming up, and they want to say, "Oh, we didn't affect the election." Yeah, sure. For the last 6 years, we have been subverting the ability for Republicans to use social media, but these last 2 months we didn't, so it's okay. CYA.
Zuckerberg's hard to
cover your own
pin
ass
down. I never know what he's thinking behind those lizard eyes.
He's not thinking. He's a lizard.
I mean, they think. It's just not like
no. They're just on lizard brain. It's a reaction to stimulus.
That's fair. Facebook and its related service Instagram are removing hundreds of pages and accounts belonging to both Antifa and QAnon. In a public statement on Wednesday, Facebook said, We already remove content calling for or advocating violence, and we ban organizations and individuals that proclaim a violent mission.
Bullshit. I'm sorry. This is partially true. They did ban content that called for violence, but mostly from only one side of the political aisle for a very long time. They allowed "kill all men" and other phrases on the left that call for violence against straight white males, conservatives, blah blah blah. They have been allowing Antifa accounts that have not just glorified violence but directly called for it. And now they're covering their ass saying, "Oh, we've always done this, but now we're actually going to start doing it."
Let's be honest, Triumvirate. Biden has said things that would make Richard Spencer bluff.
Blush.
Blush.
So
yes.
yeah,
Thank you.
Facebook went on to say, however, we have seen growing movements that, while not directly organizing violence, have, come on, it's Antifa. That's what they do. They have celebrated violent acts, shown that they have weapons and suggest that they will use them, or have individual followers with patterns of violent behavior. Which is also this is misleading. I mean, like I told you before, they're saying that they're expanding the definition to include these other things. But Antifa not only has had violent behavior, members that were violent, haven't already been showing, only been showing weapons and been glorifying violence. They've been directly calling for it. So this is, I'm glad they're doing the right thing, but your excuse for why you haven't been doing it is complete bullshit.
So we also have Portsmouth, Virginia Democrat Senator Louis Lucas. Louis Lucas?
Yep.
Fuck him. Charged with felonies for joining a riot to tear down Confederate monument. Senator Louis Lucas of a Democrat in Portsmouth is facing 2 felony charges over her role. She's a girl too, and her first name's Louis. That's so weird. What is wrong with these people? Where does the Democrat Party find these people? Let's see. So let me restart.
Portsmouth, I guess.
So Louis Lucas, who's a girl and a senator, Democrat senator, is being charged with a felony for helping to topple over a Confederate statue in Portsmouth in June. Police announced Monday.
I think they prefer to be called Senate X now.
Yes. Let's hear. The police chief said that the charges were the result of a week-long investigation into the June 10th incident, which left a local man critically injured after a statue fell on him during a protest.
Which was hilarious.
Yes, you guys may remember the absolutely hilarious and well-deserved video. I feel absolutely no remorse. I think it is absolutely hilarious. It was that video.
Games.
Yeah, it was kind of late at night, but it was that one where they were pulling down the statue, and then the statue came down, and it just absolutely drilled that guy right into the ground. Absolutely hilarious. And I do remember there was one of these people who's getting charged with felonies was one of the girls. You guys might remember that video. There was one of the girls that was sitting up on top of the statue, and when the statue got pulled away from her and then crushed the guy below her, she started cheering, and then you could just kind of see the excitement drain out of her face, and then she put her hand in her mouth, and she was like, "Oh, fuck." It's so funny. But good on them. They should get charged with attempted murder. I believe that guy survived, but he's severely disabled now.
Very disabled.
He had his brain exploded, which probably made him smarter than the kind of person who would go to a riot and
he's not any dumber than he was before or anyone else who was currently there.
They always have these sad stories about he was a family man. Why was he engaged in a violent riot? Why wasn't he with his family then?
Okay, if you have a dictator who's killed a bunch of people, but he was a family man, does that really change anything? Does being a family man make you a better person?
Are you asking for a friend, Dyer?
I mean, I may or may not moonlight as a dictator, so.
As a family man. Yeah. So Let's see here. So Lucas and 6 others, including several actual verified NAACP leaders, like actual people associated with the NAACP, that's a pretty big deal, are also, and a school board member, are also being charged with felonies for conspiring to commit a felony, which is itself
This
a
is
felony.
why you should never trust a school board. This person is helping determine what your kids learn.
But I've been hearing some of these supposed stories where like the NAACP is like, oh, like, well, we don't know about these riots, like we're not supporting that, but like, I mean, that's what their press corps says. Dyer, you would know most of all. Sometimes the press releases for organizations don't necessarily match their activities, right?
I feel like I'm being called out here.
Oh, I feel like you probably can't confirm or deny that, actually. So I will speculate that the press releases from the NAACP saying that they don't really understand what the violent rioting is about and that they don't support that, but then their leaders are getting charged with felonies for committing violent riots. I'm going to go ahead and say that that was a misinformation campaign by their press releases there.
Thanks for not making me make a official statement on whether or not the government lies about the military or not.
Yes, Dyer's official statement is that the government always tells the truth. Right?
Wink. Wink.
Wink.
Right. So, the monument drama in Portsmouth continues beyond... What?
Howitzers, like, Dyer, shut the fuck up, Fox.
So, the monument drama in Portsmouth continues way beyond Senator Lewis Lucas, who is female, by the way, and I don't believe it. What the hell did this happen? Okay, so the 14 prominent people, including Senator Lewis Lucas, were charged Monday following the destruction of the Confederate monument in June that left the man seriously injured and disabled, but no dumber than he was before. Now, there's a new effort to throw the book at Lucas's daughter, Lisa Lucas Burke, the vice mayor in the city. Huh. Wow, her family is in the government, I guess. So some say that Louis Berkey's demands for the firing of the police chief, Alegine, how do you say that name?
Angela?
Alenga Green.
It's
Angela
literally
Hurd.
just Angela.
Angela Green violates a section of the city charter. I'm going to say it was spelled wrong, but I just said it wrong.
You put the emphasis
Green
on the wrong
violates
syllable.
a section of the city charter that says council members cannot call for the firing or resignation of any city employee. So, because the different prominent members are being arrested, including Lisa's Berkey's mother. Lisa Berkey's, the vice mayor, is saying that the police chief that's having them charged or at least arrested is saying that the police chief should resign or be fired for enforcing the law, right? To defend her mother for being held accountable for her crime. But it turns out that the younger Lisa, the younger Lucas, Lisa Lucas Berkey, is also committing a crime because you're not allowed to, as the mayor, to call for resignation or the firing of a government employee. So she might also be charged with a felony.
So just because like their like whole government in that city is just like so incestuous, it's just like impossible to like get anything done legally because it's like illegal for them all to interact with each other. It's very strange.
It is, all she had to do is shut up. All she had to do.
And am I to understand then that the mayor is basically saying that it's illegal for the police to hold her accountable to the law?
Yes.
Awesome.
So basically, actually, no, she's saying, okay, police chief is trying to enforce the law by arresting 14 people who committed a crime. She's saying, okay, because you're trying to arrest someone for committing felonies, multiple felonies, you should be fired. Wow. That's obstruction of justice, actually. Even if you didn't use the city ordinance that says that you, as a member of the, as being a member of the city council or a mayor, you can't call for someone to be fired, that's a government employee, even if you forget that rule, right? Obstructing justice is also a crime you'd be committing.
We're going to lose federalism. Like, I don't see any other option than to federalize these cities. Like, cities like this, like, I don't see how they're, like, recoverable back to the, like, federalist system of, like, division of, like, tiered government.
Well,
Like,
this is one way. As long as they keep being corrupt like this, like all the members of her family that are in government are committing crimes and are going to be put in jail, and thus have to be replaced by someone hopefully better. If they're not, if they're worse or the same, they'll get arrested in jail too because they'll probably commit crimes.
Yeah, but like arrested and jailed by who? Apparently, they're not allowed to arrest and jail each other. Like it would have to be at the federal level.
Well, they committed felonies. They're getting arrested by the federal government, even if the local police don't do anything. They committed felonies.
They just need to like, I don't know. They just need to like clean slate some of these cities. Is like, okay, you guys we're gonna arrest all of your politicians down to the dog catcher, and you guys have the citizenry has an opportunity to re-elect a full clean slate. You guys get one chance. If you screw it up again, we're deincorporating the city.
Fox, look at it this way, okay? 15 people are going to go to jail for federal crimes for years, and someone
though?
The court, they're being charged. We'll see, but they could go to jail for years, and someone's permanently disabled because they couldn't just fucking wait and vote to have the statue taken down.
Because that was one of the statues too, where like I think the city council had already voted for it.
Yes,
and they were it was on the schedule for like 30 days. It was going to be professionally removed.
They couldn't wait for 30 days. Because of that, we have 15 people possibly going to jail for a long time, as well as someone permanently disabled. They could have just followed the law, and all this would have been avoided. And I can't get past how incestuous the government leadership in this city and state are. It's ridiculous. Moving on.
Man beat within an inch of his life by BLM and Antifa rioters because he defended a trans woman. This man who tried to defend a trans woman is now recovering while one of his attackers cries like a little bitch and had to turn himself into police. Which actually this happened last Sunday, and I believe we were going to talk about this last Sunday, but then Dyer and I just passed out instead. So Marquise Love has turned himself in and was booked in the He was booked in a county detention center on Friday, shortly after 8:30 a.m. local time, according to jail records. Marquise Love is charged with assault, coercion, rioting, all three of which are felonies. As shown on his records. And you guys, it's been a week since this happened. You guys have probably seen the video of this guy after he got pulled out of his truck. He's sitting down on the ground in the middle of the street, and he's trying to leave, and all these BLM are yelling at him and screaming at him. And then this one guy, this Marquise guy, he like gets like a good run up. Like it is like he's ready to like kick a field goal run up, and this actually punched this guy's head so hard it like bounces him off the concrete, and this guy just like really smacked his head on the ground. He almost died. And then this Marquise guy was like on the run last week, and 4chan tracked him down, and then the feds tracked him down, and then they arrested him.
He did was it a Twitter video where he was crying?
It was a Snapchat. He Snapchatted that he was running from the law. And he was like, I was just fighting. It was actually funny. In a Snapchat video, he was like, I was just fighting racists. You can go look it up on Twitter. And now they're upset at me because I was fighting racists. And he's like, go look it up on Twitter. And when you go look it up on Twitter, you just see him like punting a completely defenseless man's head into the ground.
Yeah. After they made him crash his vehicle.
Love makes war, Howitzer says.
Yeah.
Howitzer, you know what you did. All right. Well, have we spent enough time on that story?
I know. It hasn't been an hour almost.
It's getting there. So that was all one super story, guys. It was a bunch of like little parts of a big super story. That's why we had 20 pages. This is
I'm sorry.
This is half the show already, so I guess it does work out that we do have an appropriate number of pages. Somehow, like the less time Dyer and I spend writing, the more pages we write. It's very strange. Let's see here. So our next story is people are totally fed up with the lockdowns, which I believe is a story from 3 months ago, because that's when we were all fed up with the lockdowns. And the update is that everyone remains fed up with the lockdowns.
Story's done. There we go.
Next story.
Okay.
So, actually, that's your part. Go for it.
So the first section is the Jersey gym owners continue to defy the lockdown. They declare their gym is a political rally for the opponent of the Democrat incumbent. So we have a little update to the story about the Atlas Gym in New Jersey, whose owners have been defying the state's continued lockdown order. As you may remember, they reopened their gym in May in defiance of New Jersey Governor Murphy's restrictions on non-essential businesses. While choosing to open, so basically Murphy chose to open some businesses that he declared to be essential, and not other businesses that he chose were not essential. Of course, if ask anyone whether or not the business that provides them their job and their paycheck is essential, they'll always say yes. So people's opinions on what is or is not essential may not, correspond to what Murphy thinks is. The owners of Atlas Gym, like many business owners, felt these edicts were arbitrary, were incredibly harmful to the public, as it made many people go without a paycheck and caused a lot of businesses to close indefinitely. But they also felt that these edicts were completely unconstitutional and unenforceable, and that if challenged in the court of law, they would be found unconstitutional and then, thrown out. They felt that they were just as capable of using the COVID-19 mitigation procedures as any of the businesses that were allowed to remain open.
So the co-owners, Frank Trumbit and Ian Smith, had their business forcibly closed by the police. They were fined thousands of dollars for reopening, and the way that they reopened was by breaking into their own business, because the city had locked them out of their own business, which is right next door to a Dollar General that was allowed to be open the whole time and had hundreds of people in and out of it. The police changed the locks on their doors. There's a great video of them using crowbars to break into their own business that they own the property, and they broke the doors with the crowbars. Which actually, I think if I remember correctly, they broke the doors enough that they couldn't be closed, and it was just well, now it's open forever. Let's see here. So the state then took away their business license, something they didn't really have a constitutional right to demand in the first place. Yeah, that's it's the right to life, liberty, property, and to have to apply for a license to earn a living. I think that was in the Constitution somewhere. Their latest tactic to defy the tyrannical New Jersey Democrat government and their jackboot thug police bastard officers. Not all police are bastards, but some of them are, as we've discussed previous episodes. So those police are bastards for sure. They've declared that their gym is a daily campaign rally for Republican U.S. Senate candidate Rick Mehta, who is running against Democrat New Jersey Senator Cory Booker. As you may remember, Cory Booker briefly competed for the Democrat nomination, gaining less than 1% of the vote. He would also like to remind you that he does have a girlfriend, though. Come on, guys.
Yeah, it must really suck be even less popular than Biden.
So it was funny because Booker was on the Democrat National Convention. He was on some slate or something, and I think Crowder was making fun of the slate because it was a slate of all of the rejects, and Crowder said something about Booker reminding everyone that he had a girlfriend, and he played a clip where Booker brought it up completely non sequitur, and I thought it was funny before he played the clip, because I remember It must be the Mandela effect or something like that. But I distinctly remember Cory Booker being gay. And I was like, I thought Cory Booker and Buttigieg were the gay ones. And then I remembered, no, wait. Everyone just thought Booker was gay. I was like, I legitimately thought he was. And then Crowder proved me wrong, apparently. But I don't know. Proven in a court of law.
That's hilarious. So what else about Booker should we remember? I already said that.
Oh, did you? You might also remember that Cory Booker, as the Democrat senator who declared his "I am Spartacus" moment during the Kavanaugh hearings, when he decided that he was Spartacus for doing a thing that he said was illegal, but wasn't illegal, and the thing that he was going to do had already actually been done.
Yeah, like weeks earlier, right?
Yeah.
He's basically was a pay attention to me, please.
Yeah. So, but this Republican Senate candidate, like, he actually did like team up with these guys. Like, it's on, like, it's properly registered that like their location is a official campaign location, and so now the state, they can't. I think that they can't enforce the previous fines either now. And if they continue fining a campaign spot, there's like a really big fucking can of worms that opens up on the state if they try to if they're trying to levy fines and close down campaign sites of the rival candidacy. Like, there's a lot of things that come on down the pipeline from that. And if the cops want to try and mess around with that too, like, you know, the cops want to go push around regular citizens and be bastards doing that. That's one thing. The cops actually overtly get involved with trying to stifle campaign activity. Oh boy, will their police unions not be able to do anything about it.
Yeah, so the owners are leaning on the fact that state officials cannot interfere with political campaigns. That's the rule. They can't. And that's why they declared their gym to be a campaign rally location every single day. However, that doesn't mean the officials won't try to shut their gym down again. And we're all just waiting to see, will they try? Because they'd be committing a crime if they did. And this would be this time it'd be the Democrat Party trying to push push up against the Republican Party, and there would be means of resistance to take it to court. They had the funds to challenge it in court, where it wouldn't just be this gym owners having to fight against the government. Now
Yes.
It's the government against government.
So these guys are doing some good work here. They're hopefully will set some precedent here. They're in a maybe less of a unique position these days, but they did have the means, motive, and opportunity to make a stand here. They have been extremely creative in their defiance, and they have been creative enough to get the state all tied up where it is now much harder for the state to do this. And if they can get this to work, then this kind of lays out a template for reopening under Democrat strongholds. Is, all right, well, you guys want to play political games, we'll play political games. And I would imagine you're going to be real hard pressed to find any member of that gym that is going to be like, yeah, I want to go pull the lever for the Democrats now. Yeah, that's pretty good campaign tactics. And if they the idea was that maybe this Republican senator and other Republican politicians would be doing this in other areas with other businesses. If that's what we need to do, then all right, well, all the Democrat businesses, well, you guys can keep shut down by your own people. You wanna declare yourself for the Republicans? Well, we'll come reopen your business for you. How about that?
And they could do this hypothetically to every single business that's closed.
Absolutely.
Which would be great.
And then you're in the that really ties up the state in a weird position where they have to arbitrarily define what is and is not a campaign location, which they don't want to open that can of worms.
Yeah. So there's also one last note on people getting fed up with these lockdowns. We have a video that I want to show you guys because it's from a, I guess, conservative or just an average citizen, seems like ex-military, who is saying, "Hey, the
We'll just
conservatives
watch
have been
it. We'll just
have
watch
been
it.
protesting peacefully, legitimately peacefully, for against these lockdowns for a long time." The the reaction in the beginning when we didn't know, with an absence of information, there's a lot more fear and a lot more precautions taken. But now we know that the lockdowns are not necessary, and that COVID is not as dangerous as it initially was thought to be. That's the facts. Doesn't mean you don't take precautions. We can take precautions, but it shows that the lockdowns themselves are more harmful than the virus, and the lockdowns continuing past a logical point is nonsensical. There was an argument for a short lockdown while the medical establishment was being improved, but that's already happened. There now is no legitimate reason other than to continue to harm your citizens and harm the economy to spite Trump. There's no legitimate reason to remain locked down. And this citizen has some choice words about what's going to happen if the state continues to push everyday citizens. It's going to make them have to choose.
YouTube doesn't like this video.
Yes.
Howitzer
Okay.
said YouTube doesn't like this video.
I can turn YouTube off.
Well, we can just go. I mean, if YouTube turns itself off, then YouTube turns itself off. But
It's not like we're gonna get demonetized.
yeah.
Huh.
We got 3 good strikes to work through. So we'll play it anyways. But if we do get knocked off of YouTube, head on over to Be Live. Yeah, I'll throw a link in chat there. But we'll stay on YouTube if we can. I think it'll be fine. We'll see.
Okay, so let's watch this video.
I wasn't going to speak. I was asked to speak here, Sheriff, good to see you. I'm telling you guys, I'm pretty appalled at what's going on. At first we sat as concerned citizens and we all wanted to figure out how to best navigate our way through this whole COVID thing, And as we realized that it's not quite as dangerous as we thought it'd be, I was absolutely appalled at the cowardice, And as you're sitting there with your masks on, I don't blame you for wearing masks because I'd be hiding my face too if I was you for what you're doing. This is absolutely horrendous what you're doing to these people. I'm a business owner, and I'm telling you, our families are starving. You guys can sit here with your jobs. You can sit here and you're going to get paid. You can fall asleep in your chair like that gentleman's doing behind his mask right there, okay? And I'm telling you right now that right now we're being peaceful. And you better be happy that we're good citizens, that we're peaceful citizens. But it's not going to be peaceful much longer, okay? And this isn't a threat. I'm not a criminal. I've never been a criminal. But I'm telling you that good citizens are going to turn into real concerned and revolutionary citizens real soon. And nobody else is going to say that. I'm probably the only person that has the balls to say what I'm saying right now. That we're building, we're organizing, and we'll work with law enforcement or without law enforcement. But you won't stop us when time comes because our families are starving. And if you don't hear the seriousness of my voice, I hope you open your ears and you absolutely listen to what I'm saying. Because this is a warning for what's coming. It's not going to be peaceful much longer. It's not going to be rah-rah. It's not going to be speeches. It's not going to be gathered outside saying a Pledge of Allegiance. It's not going to be waving flags. It's going to be real. When you've seen the things that I've seen, I went to war for this country. I've seen the ugliest, dirtiest part of humanity. I've been in combat, and I never want to go back again. But I'm telling you what, I will to save this country. If it has to be against our own citizens, it will happen. And there's a million people like me, and you won't stop us. Open the county. Let our citizens do what they need to do. Let owners of businesses do what they need to do to feed their families. Take the masks off. Quit masking and muzzling your children. The psychological damage that you're doing to them is horrible. I've had 6 friends kill themselves since it's happened. Veterans who lost their jobs. How do you feel about being complicit in perpetuating that? The greatest hoax ever perpetuated on the American people, and you're a part of it by wearing your masks. In Shasta County, we're supposed to be red country up here. Not blue country, we're red country up here.
California, right?
Huh?
Shasta County is in California, I believe.
I don't know.
So, people will only be pushed so far.
Yeah,
And,
so like
I think-
I disagree with a lot of what he had to say there and like the way it was, but the point is that people are getting short fused, and you can't choose how people are going to react to that, right? And so I have a little bit of problems with some of the stuff that he's saying about how
Masks.
he thinks he's going to react to stuff, what his particular issues are with things, but at the end of the day, if this continues on, we are quickly running out of time where we get to be picky about how people are reacting to this, and they're just going to react.
Yeah. I think that his objection to masks was a little ridiculous, but the point is that whether or not I agree with his reasoning, a lot of people have a legitimate anger and fear because they don't have jobs. They cannot meet their basic needs of safety and security of having food, having the next meal, and that turns people to violence. Even good citizens, when everything is taken away from them and they are up against the wall, will resort to violence.
Yeah, and one of the biggest issues with this whole thing is you've got the people who are least impacted by their decisions making the decisions, and it is kind of funny. We see this especially with Lori Lightfoot, but it's with all of them across the entire country, across all levels of government. It seems to be interesting that the one job you can guarantee is essential will be the government itself. It is never the city council that's deemed to be not an essential job. So these guys, all the people making the decisions, all the people in power, they're all still making money. They're all still able to feed their families, and they want you, the peasants, you just need to roll over and die. You need to have your family starving, and screw you, do it for the cause because we said so. And people are only going to put up with that for so long.
That's right.
There has to be better solutions to that. And he's not wrong about it's not as dangerous as we thought it was. And the other problem is it's not as dangerous as we thought it was, but also the government has been absolutely atrocious with getting us out any of the information that we need to know about it. A lot of the best information that we have about it is not coming from government sources. It's coming from independent research. And the Democrats have been perpetuating that. All the liberal cities have been perpetuating that. They really I think a lot of the liberal cities are really having a fetish about being able to lock down everything and control everything. And the police, it sounds like he was buddies with the sheriff, so it seemed to be in his situation the city council was going to find itself on the outs. Some people's cities it's going to be a little bit different, where the sheriff's going to be on the side of the city council, and so people are going to need to start. They're going to have to start drawing those battle lines there, start thinking about what they want to do. And again, I don't agree with all the stuff that he was saying, and I don't agree with his reaction to all the stuff. But if his family's hungry and he's out of money, you don't get a choice in how people are going to react to that sort of stuff.
I know two types of leaders. I've come across these two archetypes over and over and over again. You have leaders who they only try to exert their authority and power that comes with that authority when they're trying to fix something that's broken. There's a problem and they want to solve it. And they look for the least amount of power being used to find a solution to said problem. They're not trying to change things so that it's theirs. They're trying to, if they see it as a group ownership, they're a part of a team, and they're doing their role of improving the team, right?
More of a
then you have
leadership.
leaders who just get off on exerting their power. They will change things and make it their own just for the sake of changing from what it was. There is often they often come up with an excuse for why this thing is being changed, but there is no problem that's being solved, right? And they will exert, in doing so, they'll exert wide authority and wide use of power to when even if it was a problem, it could have been solved with far less, right? Those kinds of leaders often are the ones that are micromanagers that where they could say, hey, here's a minor problem. I'm dictating to you the left and right limits on how to solve this problem. Lower level leadership, you are going to be tasked with solving it within this range of options. But that would be using the least amount of authority, right? But instead, they would go and say, dictate to lower level leadership exactly what they will do, how they'll do it, and all the steps involved, and not allow any tactical leadership to occur. That's what the Democrats seem like to me, is where they just get off on exerting the power. That's why they are in government, is because they don't want to They don't want to govern. They don't want to do what's good for society. They just love being able to exert power over society, having people do what they want.
It's the planners. They love to plan, and the best plan is the one where they get to keep making plans, which means that they get to keep being in charge.
Yep.
All right, ready for the next story?
Oh yeah, I hear it's hot.
Oh, very hot. California is very hot. So hot.
So I hear.
It's the hottest. Fires.
Be gone from me,
Whoa.
you soy boy beta cock. The transaction is complete.
I don't think there were any Democrats in the gym before this anyway. Have you seen
True.
the Democrats lately? It's a bunch of emaciated soy boys, paraplegic black girls, and majestic blue-haired land whales. These people don't go to gyms. Republicans are hot.
Conservatives are hot. Republicans are meh.
Yes.
I did see Sarah Palin was on Tucker the other night, and she still got it. She still got the librarian thing going on. That was 10 years ago, too. She still looks almost the same. Good for her. All right. So, but thank you for that, Triumvirate. Much thank you for that $10. We very much appreciate it. As Dyer said, that goes on to support our, well, whatever this is.
Yeah. You're taking ownership for it. It's all your fault.
Yeah. All right. So California is hot, hot, hot. Fires, heat waves, droughts, and no AC because of the blackouts. California is literally hell on earth. Brought to you by the Democrats. While the natural heat of the summer is being blamed on global warming, shocker, the truth is that for more than a century, California's population and farming has only ever been sustainable due to massive engineering projects that have diverted several of our nation's rivers into California. Like, a lot of the rivers west of the Mississippi are literally have been rerouted into California. And if that had not happened, the maximum population that California could have sustained without that extra water is like 7 people. So for California to be like freaking out about droughts, I don't know about that. It's kind of actually the drought is the natural condition of California. California not being in drought is highly, highly artificial. And so it's really more of a engineering problem and just the fact that California is like way overpopulated for what the land could naturally support. Not so much global warming. There's just literally too many people in California. There's just too many people using water. There's too much agriculture for using water there. I mean, the valleys and stuff there, they got a lot of like really fertile soil, but there's no water for it. They have to pull all that water in from different places. And if you're not pulling that water in, well, all of a sudden that land's not quite as fertile as it was. And so they've got a lot of, again, all of that industry, all of that farming, all of the drinking water is all piped in for almost the entire state. It is really ridiculous how much water they're pulling in. And so it's really not the fault of global warming that they just have too many people for the water supply there. I'm in a very waterlogged state, so my state could support a lot of people with how much water we got because we naturally have a lot of water. California actually can't support that, so it's kind of their fault that they, that they do that. It's not really global warming's fault that they built giant cities where there was no goddamn water. Kind of like New Orleans. It's not global warming's fault that you built your city 20 feet below sea level where there's hurricanes. It's not their fault. It's your guys' fault. You shouldn't have a city there. That's not my fault that you put a city there. It's not global warming's fault that you're stupid.
It's so true and yet so hilarious. All right, so the rolling blackouts have a few causes. The first is because the wildfires. Turning off the power in certain areas reduces the chance of lines sparking more fires. Also, you could say a large reason why that's possible is because they have stopped, cutting out the undergrowth and doing controlled burns.
Whoa. We're getting to that.
We'll get into that in a second. Given that, it's 2020 and this is America, turning off the power to large areas of the state does not seem like a viable long-term strategy. Kind of like a Band-Aid that also has cyanide in it. Pretty much sums up all of the Democrat plans. The fires are much worse than usual this year, and dry, windy weather is coming in the coming week is expected to make it much worse. As of right now, it is estimated that 240,000 people are under evacuation orders due to being in the path of the fires, or because of the smoke clouds they are producing.
Fun.
Fun, yeah.
According to the Democrats, put a little few too many thes in there. According to the Democrats, global warming is to blame for the fires too. Man. But it's, that extra 2 degrees Celsius, just all of a sudden, like the wood just auto ignites in the forest. just an extra, just think about that, guys. Wherever you're at, if there's a tree next to you, 2 degrees, that thing will just spontaneously explode.
It might catch fire.
It'll explode into flames.
Yeah, don't worry about seasonal weather. That doesn't count.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's just 2 degrees Celsius, guys. Just auto combustion of everything.
At what point, though?
Anyway, so as always, everything's got to be blamed on global warming. So the California fires, they're being blamed by global warming too, and it's just not really that simple, guys. Because I was kind of lying there. You might have noticed that I was being ironic, or sarcastic.
What?
I was being sarcastic. The trees do not auto ignite at plus 2 degrees Celsius.
Oh, no, Fox said it.
I know. So, the California forest fires have gotten worse and worse every year for like the last 20 or 30 years as a direct result of California's environmental policy. Now, that's strange, you say. Isn't the environmental policy supposed to protect the environment?
You'd think so.
You would think so. Just like Democrat inner cities policy is supposedly going to protect the inner city. Oh wait, I'm seeing a pattern
do
here.
the exact opposite, actually.
Yeah, it's like all the things that the Democrats say they want to protect, they're actually elaborate plans to murder them all. That's weird.
Just like black people. That's what they do.
I was going to go with trees, but okay.
They are mass murdering lots and lots of black babies.
Yes.
By design. But to protect
Slight different. They have not. Never mind. The interviews, Newsom in interviews, Governor Gavin Newsom of California has admitted that the fires are being fueled by hundreds of millions of dead trees that have turned the forests into tinderboxes. But in the same interview,
coming.
What's up?
Who could possibly have seen that coming?
No one could have possibly seen that coming, which is actually literally a line I've got coming up here, but thank you. But also in that interview, Gavin Newsom also claimed that there is nothing that could be done about the millions of dead trees, as he recounted a story about his father having to spend $35,000 just to clear out a small patch of dead trees one time. Newsom stopped there, though, and did not explain that the overbearing cost was due to forestry regulations that California has implemented over the last 40 years.
Wow. It started with the spotted owl.
Of course,
But-
that's where it always starts.
Always starts with the spotted owl. Never the unspotted owl, though. It's kind of relegated to the back pages of history. But there were dozens of other woodland creatures over the years, and each regulation made it more and more impossible to cut down trees for any reason. The result was a near 70% reduction in timber harvesting since the 80s. The forest is growing faster than old trees can be cut down, and fallen trees can be removed. Fallen trees mess up the environment for other trees, causing them to fall faster than they otherwise would have, making it a feedback loop of fallen bone-dry trees, just waiting to be sparked. Even if California was to reverse these failed policies, that 70% reduction in logging capacity is still gone. It would take decades to get it up to speed again. Those companies have left and gone to other places to get their wood. So, yeah, it's not likely they're going to be able to bring that back very quickly.
Yeah, so the other thing is too is that the spotted owl. So they stopped cutting down the trees for that, the spotted owl thing, and then there was like other things that they wanted to save too that added more and more regulations. But the spotted owl is kind of the definitive start point, and because of the increased presence of the fallen trees, it created a new environment that was more hospitable to, I forget what it was. It was some kind, I think it was a reptile of some kind. It was something that ate spotted owls, and because there was more trees that fell, the habitat for these things that eat spotted owls like made it really hospitable to these things. And so the spotted owls were still in decline because they were getting eaten by this thing.
This is also something you got to realize is that nature's way of clearing out this this undergrowth, and these the dead what do you call it, buildup in forest, is for there to be fires. So nature, through lightning strikes, will burn old forests and create new ones. And since we know that's what's going to happen, what we can do is to plan for that and do those controlled burns ourselves, or make it so when those burns happen, there's not enough dead material to let it burn a large area.
And that's part of good human forest management. So there's also a lot of trees, a lot of conifers, that their life cycle is dependent on the fires, where the seeds do not sprout unless they hit a high temperature, and they require the ash as nutrients to grow. So there is a way of doing this, but California was like, just let it sit there, don't let it catch on fire, but let it sit there, which was not what the rest of the country did. The rest of the country does not have. The rest of the country has a lot of forest. They do not have the problems that California has with their forests. It's only California. California is unique only in that their forests are always on fire. They are not unique in that they have forests. So it's something about them, not us. But it's kind of sucks though. I mean, even if they were to, which they show no signs of reversing course. They think that they're on the perfectly fine course. They think, again, they're blaming all of this on global warming, which takes all of the responsibility off of them and their failed policies. Which we see that global warming being used for like a lot of things. That's why like racial injustice gets blamed on global warming. Not kidding, but like things like the inner city crime rates and stuff like that get blamed on global warming. They blame terrorism on global warming. They blame all sorts of stuff on global warming, and that's so that they don't have to take responsibility for their failed policies. It's not that their policies failed. It's that global warming messed it all up, and that just means they get to make more plans. Lucky them. So, but even if they were to suddenly come to grips with reality and say, oh, crap, maybe we need to change how we do our forest policy, they literally couldn't for several years because the industry is just physically removed. They've strangled it so hard that it can't actually come back. So I guess good for them. Perhaps that means that the forests will just... maybe the forest will take care of the California problem on its own. Let's see here. So there's actually another reason for the blackouts too, though. So the first reason, rolling blackouts all over California. First reason, as Dyer said, was because they were disabling power to certain areas to try and avoid the power lines sparking more fires. The other reason for the blackouts, though, is that it's just plain hot in California, which is a really big surprise that California is hot. Who knew? Increased AC usage during the summertime has strained the power grid to the point of collapse, and there's just not enough electricity to go around to power all those AC units. And that's even with the extra power that they have from not sending power to the places that they blacked out for the fires. So, like, they blacked out part of the state for the fires, and even with all that extra power, they still don't have enough power for the rest of the grid. It's insane. That's insane. So why doesn't California have enough power? Isn't this the first world? Aren't we in America? Isn't it 2020? Why is California's grid so weak? Well, according to grid operators, who would probably know, California, quote, didn't have enough power feeding into the system due to a combination of 2 natural gas power plants going offline and a slowdown in wind power and a sharp drop-off in solar power during the evenings. Wow.
Who could have seen that
Solar
coming?
power drops off in the evenings. I don't think anyone could have seen that coming, Dyer. Dyer, could you have seen that
That's
coming?
complete surprise.
That is,
everyone
I am
thought that it
very
would be-
surprised.
it's a 1-for-1 swap, right? You
Imagine-
take away coal plants, make it so that they go out of business by making their business too expensive to operate, and then we'll replace them with a renewable power that is less efficient and only operates during certain times. That seems like it'd be a good 1-for-1 swap, right?
They have
Right?
almost enough forest fires. They could probably run the solar power off of it. Why don't they just make wood-burning power plants? It would solve both problems.
It would solve both
It would
problems.
be.
I
It would
mean,
probably put out less carbon, and it would solve both problems. They
mean,
could
it's
still burn
still-
down the forests, just like they want to, apparently, and they would have electricity. So that was what the grid operator said. As the grid operator said, it's because you turned off 2 fossil fuel plants, and the renewable energies are just not cutting. They're just not cutting it. The California politicians, on the other hand, said the problem is not that the state has too many renewables, but it's that it doesn't have enough.
So we need more power plants that will not produce enough power.
Yeah, because if the wind isn't winding on the current windmills, that just means you need more windmills that would also not have wind on them, Dyer. Doesn't it make sense? Come on.
No, it doesn't. It actually doesn't make sense. What you're saying is not making sense.
I mean, like, at a certain point, if you have enough solar cells, they will work at night, right?
No, they will still not work at night.
Wait,
So
do
your
I
only
fundamentally
solution-
misunderstand how solar power works?
I think you have. The only real solution, if you're going to be forced to use only solar and wind, would be to be extremely lucky and there'd never be a storm and have a lot of battery storage.
Well, so that is actually their next solution. Would you like to tell us
What?
about it, Dyer?
Okay, so other solutions proposed by California elites is to use more battery storage. That's not a solution. Not a.
It's a plan, Dyer. It's a plan.
It's a plan to keep planning later on to solve the problem they're creating right now. Current battery storage methods are only viable on the level of individual houses and cost quite a lot of money to implement. Current battery storage technology is limited to using high volumes of lead or high volumes of lithium. Both these elements create extreme pollution to mine and are typically mined by slaves in either Africa or China. Such fun. Your solution to stop pollution is to create even more pollution and also throw in slave labor, because when has California ever turned that down?
Yeah, or they could just, they could use fossil fuels or
No,
nuclear power. But yeah,
Exactly.
like you said though, when given the choice between using slave labor and not using slave labor, California chooses slave labor every time.
I can't help but notice that Kamala Harris no longer is in charge of law enforcement in California, and since that point, they've had an uptick.
You can take the Kamala out of California, but you can't take the Kamala slave policy out of California.
Yeah, they've had an uptick in fires, and when Kamala was in charge, she was using slave labor from criminals who had already gone past their sentences in California jails, using them to help fight fires. So no longer having Kamala's slave labor force has resulted in more fires in California. I think we found the problem.
Imagine just like having a half ounce blazing up, and then Kamala comes and throws you in jail for 20 years for half an ounce that you were blazing, and then she throws you into the big blaze for $1 a day.
I should be laughing at this.
Yes.
Pretty bad, actually.
So California, they're just all these problems. Newsom has declared a state of emergency, and and there's no seriousness being taken into like account with any of this stuff. So like with the power problem, they were talking about battery storage, and their time horizon on that is like 2023. Yeah, out of power right now. You don't got time till 2023. What's wrong with you?
Okay, so let's say they get battery powers that will allow them to store enough during the day. These are going to be gigantic solar farms, by the way. They need gigantic solar farms.
Yeah.
Because they tried it in Vegas, right? And in Nevada. And the amount of solar farms for the number of houses, it's a huge ratio. They only can do it because they have all this desert with unobstructed sun and very little weather, right? That's why they use that. But in California, they're going to have far more weather and not enough land for all those solar panels, right? So, but just imagine for a second that you get past those logistical impossibilities, and you have enough battery storage to now get you past the day and save enough power for the night. What about when there's a storm that lasts a week?
Or a fire.
Or a fire that blocks out the sun because of all the smoke.
So,
And
yeah, so that's why those are fundamentally stupid ideas and are unserious. And it really upsets me as, actually, it's funny because I've had some fun discussions with Shadow Wolf about this, because Shadow Wolf's kind of specialty is in, I believe it was in power infrastructure, power engineering, wasn't it? Wasn't it, Shadow Wolf? But we've had discussions about different green energy technologies that were not solar and wind. Surprise! There is other green technologies that don't involve solar and wind. So nuclear is a very green technology. But other technologies that are not even nuclear that are also green, and they're just they're exotic green energy technologies that they don't make pretty silhouettes like windmills do behind like Barack Obama and his little campaign posters. So nobody ever talks about them. But this idea of using battery storage is so fundamentally unserious and proves that the Democrats and the politicians have absolutely no concept of what they're talking about, and they've not even asked an engineer about it. So here's how you would actually store power, and here's how they really do store power. Hold on a second. But they just the fact that this technology already exists and these politicians don't know about it, and they're just saying buzzwords like having batteries and stuff like that, is so ridiculous and so unserious. I don't know why anybody elects these people. But what you would do, what ideally the storage method for green energy would be if you had windmills and solar and stuff like that, and they do this with other stuff, is you run, if you have a dam or a reservoir, any excess energy that you're generating, if it's a windy day or a sunny day, you use the excess power. You feed the grid. Whatever is extra, you feed a pump that is pumping water into a reservoir, and it's filling up that reservoir. And then when your renewable energies are dropping below how much the grid needs, that pump shuts off, and then it turns into a hydroelectric plant. And now you've got all that stored potential energy of the water tower that you've just created, and then all of a sudden that feeds back into the grid, and you've now stored your energy in that water, in the potential energy of the water, and then it drops back down the way that you would have a normal hydro plant would work. And then that runs throughout the night, and then the next morning the sun comes back up, and then you start pumping that water back up the hill, and you're good to go. That would be a serious proposal for how to store green energy, is if California wanted to revolutionize that method, if they wanted to figure out a much better way of making a reservoir, figure out a way of it not boiling off during the day, which is a big problem. There's a lot of ways that technology, that method could be improved, but I would guarantee you Gavin Newsom's never even heard of that technique. And he's out there supposedly championing green energy policy. I would guarantee you AOC's never heard of that. And she's out there writing the Green New Deal. It's just this fundamental unseriousness and absolute ignorance that the left always has.
Yeah. And you can't you don't have to look very far into the Green New Deal to realize they have no idea what they're talking about. If you were to try to implement all the things in the Green New Deal, you would just destroy our economy and create a power grid that still wouldn't, first, not be buildable. Not enough lithium exists to do what they want,
Yes.
but also still wouldn't function with the power requirement we have, or would have if you did that. Just try to implement their plan.
Yeah, like you would. The amount of one of the biggest problems with lithium, cobalt too, is the absurd level of human rights abuse that is in the supply chain that no one knows or cares about. I care about it a little bit, but like, there's just I'm not building a billion Teslas with like a quadrillion tons of blood lithium. That's not me doing that. But no one really cares about that. But the Democrats never care about that sort of stuff. So they pretend to, but they really don't. But again, it's just even if it was cheap to put lithium batteries in everyone's house like a Tesla Powerwall, there literally is not enough lithium to do that to everyone's house in California. Like even in the world, there is not enough available lithium to put enough Tesla Powerwalls into all of California homes, much less the rest of the country or the world. That is not going to be the way that we are storing. But again, that would require some seriousness and some engineering and some not idiots like AOC and Newsom.
So not the Democrat Party
Yes.
then.
I mean, I guess if the Democrats really wanted to, I suppose they could use prison slavery to build the reservoir. I mean, I know that they have to get that blood slavery into the supply chain at some point. So I guess we could compromise that they could do that if they would like to build the reservoirs with slave labor. But
I mean, I prefer to do it without it if that's an option.
no, well, I mean, we're compromising, Dyer. It's the Democrats like slavery. We will try to accommodate them. I don't like it either, Dyer.
It's just so hard.
What's
to
the alternative? Civil War? Oh wait, fuck, we already did that. All right, you ready for the next story?
Yes, I'm ready for the next story.
Done that.
Oh, jeez.
You have to think about YouTube.
Yeah, YouTube, I'm sorry to say, but you gotta goes.
But you don't have to stop listening to us. You can come over to DLive, which I put a link in the chat again. And there's a link in the description.
Yep. Please continue to watch us on DLive.
Dyer will cry if you don't, and it'll be awkward for everyone else that is here. Have to
Yeah,
listen to.
no one's gonna want to hear me cry, and
Yeah.
it's nasty. It's a
Then he'd have to kill all of us.
yeah. I won't have any witnesses have said that.